All right. So I started teaching before the video. Sorry, guys. Finn reminded me. Okay. So we just reflected C. Let me go back over what I did. I went ahead and measured so that I can make my marks on my line. I don't want to go past my line, so let me find that again. So I made a mark here, and I went over here, made a mark, and then I did not change my distance, but went to the intersections and made my mark here, and then the other intersection made another arc, and where my arcs intersect will be C prime. And then we were talking about how to remember that if I made a segment from C to C prime, it should look perpendicular to my line, okay? And also my distance from C to the line of reflection should be the same as the line of reflection to C prime. They should be congruent. What's my last step? Yeah, connect your points. You got to have the same figure because isometries don't change shape. So if I reflect a triangle, my reflection should look like a triangle. Kind of looks like a butterfly. How do you feel about reflections? Pretty good? Thumbs up, yes? Thumbs sideways, oh, maybe. Thumbs down. We're good? Okay. Okay. All right, let's flip. Flip, 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 flip. Okay. This one, notice that your figure is on the line of reflection. Okay, so if you picture it, you've got to think you're going to flip it. So where does E move at all when I flip it? No. Okay, we can already mark that. That's going to be E prime, right? Okay, where is F going to go?
F is going to go on the other side.
Yeah, the other side is going to go the opposite side. So F is going to be around here somewhere. Where is D going to go? If it's on the left, it's going to go to the right. So D is going to be around here somewhere. Okay, so it's good to flip it in your mind first and kind of plot out where it should be so that if you accidentally get lost in doing the construction, you can find your way back, okay? Or you can check yourself. All right, so before we start doing that reflection, let's write the notation. Reflect. How do we say that this is a reflection in the function notation? Little r. Good. Little r.
Subscript and line M.
Okay, we have a subscript, and we want the line of reflection, which is line M. Good. Good, and then we are putting what we are reflecting, which is triangle DEF. Okay, so I've already reflected E because it stays put. We call it E prime. I'm going to start with F, but I have to turn my paper, guys. Sorry. Okay, so F. Okay, I'm going to make my little marks and turn over here. Remember not to move your distance. It stays the same, and you go from the intersections and make another arc. And then the other intersection, make an arc. I'm going to make this one a little bit longer. Okay, and where that is intersecting, that's where F prime is going to be. So don't forget to label it F prime. And then we're going to do the same for D. I've got to turn my paper. So I don't want to go past this part of the line here, so I'm probably just going to keep it about the same. So here and here. You guys see that? And then from this intersection to this intersection. And then this will be D prime. And don't erase these marks. These just show me that you were using your compass. Bless you. Okay, and then we want to go ahead and connect. We're going to connect E to F and F to D and D to E. So D prime, E prime, E prime, F prime, Oop. And F prime, D prime. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and come around and look, okay? Okay, so we are going to do a translation now. Okay? Okay. Are we ready? Some of you are ready. The rest of you ready? All right. A translation is a transformation in which figure is shifted, right? Horizontally, vertically, but it does not rotate it, it does not reflect, okay? A translation requires two things. It requires distance and direction, okay? The distance and the direction can be given by a vector. Okay, that's what we're going to translate. How we're going to move it is by the vector. Okay, now when we do a translation, we are going to translate PR along this. See how this has like this little barb? It's kind of tiny. I'll make it bigger. It looks like this. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, that means that it's like it's not the full arrow. It's only half of it sticking up. That is a vector. That is a symbol for vector. Okay, so this symbol right here that is above PX means we are going to have a vector there. All right. So that little barb is purposeful because it means vector. All right, so this is how we write it. Translation is a capital T. Okay, so it has to be capital. And then as a subscript, we're going to put the vector. So this vector is PX. And then we put the little line with the little barb. And then what we are translating, which is PR, and it's a segment. Okay, so when I translate it, the vector is going to be, when it says PX as the vector, that means we're going to go along P to X. We're going to go this distance here, P to X. Okay, we are going to take P to X and we're going to take R the same distance. Okay, same distance because we stay the same distance in the same direction. So this vector, I'm going to draw it first. Okay, it's not really there, so I'm going to dash it. Okay, so the vector is telling me I'm taking P this direction to X and this distance. I have to do the same to R. So X becomes P prime. Okay, so again, this is the vector here. This is the vector. And it gives me distance that I go and the direction I go for every point on this figure. So the next point I have to take is R. So I've got to go the same distance, the same direction. So we're going to measure from P to X, which is now P prime, and we're going to mark it. And then we're going to do the same thing up here from R, same distance, in that same direction. Now the only other thing we have to do is make sure that PR stays congruent to the image, right? So we also have to measure P to R to see how long that segment is. So I'm measuring this, marking it. I'm going to come over to my new P prime and mark it. And where those two arcs cross, that is where my new R prime will be. Okay, and then what's my last step? Yeah, connect the dots. Connect the points, because it has to be a segment. Okay, so if I were able to pick up this vector and move it, it should be the same from P to P prime as it is from R to R prime. Those should be the same. Okay, these are also vectors. However many vectors I end up having will always be parallel. So they're not only congruent, but they will always be parallel to each other. So if I drew this vector here, if I ended up drawing a vector here, I'm going to draw it. Okay, this vector and this vector would be parallel, and they are congruent. So vectors are parallel and congruent. So if your vectors end up crossing each other, or they're not the same length, then something happened. Okay, let's do another one. This time we're going to translate triangle PRQ along the vector PZ, meaning I'm going to take P and I'm going to put it on Z. Does that make sense? Okay, let's write it first. What's my notation start with? Capital T, good. And then in parentheses, a subscript, I put? Yep, the vector PZ. Make sure you put the little barb on that to make sure it's a vector. And then what am I translating?
Triangle PRQ.
Good, triangle PRQ. Check your neighbor, make sure they wrote it down right. Okay, are we good? Okay, so again, we've got to know what our vector is first. So we are going to draw the vector from point P to point Z. And it's not actually there, so we're going to dash it to say, hey, this isn't actually there. It's our guide. And Z becomes what? P prime. Z becomes P prime. Okay, it does not matter which point you do next. I'm going to do R next, but I've got to go ahead and measure from P to my new P prime. So we've got to measure my vector. And then I've got to take R to that distance. So I'm going to mark it out here. Now, remember that P to R has to stay the same. So since P to R has to stay the same, P prime to R prime has to be congruent to it. So we've got to measure P to R. Mark it. And then we're going to transfer it from P prime. We're going to mark it. And where these two marks intersect will be my R prime. Really wish it would focus. Focus. There we go. Okay, so then you don't necessarily have to draw your vector. We might draw it later, but know that this vector, if I drew the next one, I am going to draw it. You don't have to, but I am going to draw it. If I drew this, it should be parallel to this one, right? They should be parallel. Okay, now I have to do the same distance, so I have to measure my vector again. I'm going to measure my vector again. And now I'm going to put my compass on Q and go the same distance as the vector in the same direction. Mark it. Okay. Now, PQ has to be congruent to P prime Q prime. So I need to measure PQ. So I measure PQ and put it on P prime. Measure that. Put my point. It's going to be Q prime. If I drew the vector, it should look parallel to my other vectors. Okay. And then I'm going to make the same shape. So, P prime to R prime, Z prime, sorry, P prime to Q prime, not Z prime. And then R prime and Q prime. Okay. Now, I need to make sure, the one that I did not measure was from R to Q. So I'm going to measure that, make sure that that's correct. R to Q. R to Q. Mine's just a little off. I got a little off. That's okay. But they should be the same. Ooh. Questions? I think I got off on maybe my last vector. I don't know. What questions do you have? We're okay with that? Okay. Well, let's flip. Okay. Now, you might still want your compass and your protractor. You won't actually have to use them. I use my protractor for a straight edge on this. But we're going to use this figure right here to answer these questions, okay? So you can tell we're going to do a lot of rotations and reflections and translations with this figure, okay? So sometimes it gets a little bit overwhelming, and I end up making a lot of marks. So if you want to use color, that might help. If you answer the question and you want to erase your marks, that might help too. But for each of these questions, we're going to use this figure, okay? So the first says, name the image of segment DR. So if I'm going to name the image of segment DR, DR is called my what if it's the original? Preimage, okay? So I'm going to name the image of this. And if DR is a segment, my image is going to also be a segment. So I'm naming a segment. I'm just going to put out here that I'm naming a segment. And what I'm going to do to DR is I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees counterclockwise. CCW is counterclockwise. Which direction is that, left or right? Good, left. Remember, it's the positive direction, but it's to the left. Okay, and we are going to rotate it about point P. So 90 degrees, about point P, we're going to go to the left. Does that make sense? Okay, we've got to figure out how far 90 degrees is on this. Okay, so this kind of goes back to our symmetry. All right, so if we look at this little triangle here, if we rotate it, we can rotate it how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? We can rotate it 8 times, right? So that's an order of what? 8. So this is an order of 8. So what is the degree for an order of 8? How do I find that?
It's 45 degrees.
Good. 360 divided by 8, which is 45. So that means from here to here is 45 degrees, right? Okay. So if I want 90, how many 45s do I have to go? 2. So I actually need to go from here to here to get 90. Are you with me? Okay. So that means if I start with R and I go 90 degrees, R goes 45, 90. Where does it end up at? G. So R would end up at G, right? D would end up at I. Now, when I write this, does order matter? Yeah. Which point goes with D? Because that becomes first, right? Which point? I. So I would write I first. Which point goes with R? G. So I would write G second. If you wrote G and then I, you would not be correct because the order matters in a transformation, right? We have to map the correct point to its image point. Questions? So basically what we did is we took this segment and we went like this, whoop, and put it there. Does that make sense? Can you see it? Okay, it gets easier when you can see it. If you can't see it, it makes it hard. All right, I'm going to erase my R and my D. All right. So this B says name the image of BI. So now I'm at BI. Okay, and I'm going to rotate it 180 degrees clockwise. Which direction is clockwise? To the right. So this time I'm taking it and I'm going to the right. Okay, well, I need to know how many 45s is 180? 4 of them, okay? So if I take I got to go 4 of them, right? To the right. So I goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you see it? Okay, so I goes to E, and B goes 1, 2, 3, 4 to R. So how do I write it? Which one comes first? Good, R and then E. Okay, I want you to try C. I want you to try C. And when you think you have it, check with your neighbor. That's okay, they just missed that. We got B in. All right, D. Name the image of segment RE if it is reflected over line MD. Okay, so here's what I do on this. I find my line M to D. I like to go ahead and extend my line so I know exactly what I am reflecting over. Okay, so I am reflecting RE, this one right here. Okay, now remember, in a reflection, I'm going to kind of turn my page so my line is straight up and down, like where I can see. Because when I reflect, R has to be the same distance from this line as its image point, right? Okay, it also has to create a 90-degree segment with its image point. Okay, so if I'm putting my pencil here, what should R reflect to? G, yeah? Does that make sense? So R should reflect to G. What should E reflect to? I. Okay, so this became, and then we just have to put it in the right order. So R is first. Which one of these goes first? G, and then I. I think reflections are a lot easier. Okay, but you've got to remember same distance and perpendicular, right? Same distance and perpendicular. Okay, so go ahead and do E. Go ahead and do E. We are almost out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and do this one with you, do this for you. So we got GA, so I'm going to extend GA. Okay, don't pack up yet. And I want IG, I want to reflect IG, so I want to reflect this one. Now remember, if G is on the line of reflection, what happens? It stays in the same spot, right? Okay, but then what does I go to? I goes to D. Yeah, so I comes here, G stays as itself. Okay, so what comes first? I, so it's D first, right? So D and then G second, and it is a segment. All right. I am going to give you practice so you can get started on this practice, but it is not due.